Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we've got a fascinating topic in front of us. It's all about something the source material calls magnetic selling.
That's right. And it's not just another sales guide. It's really about uh, acquiring a specific kind of charisma, a personal approach that naturally attracts customers.
So our mission for you today is pretty clear. We're going to pull out the core psychological principles and, maybe more importantly, the practical steps you can actually use.
We want to help you move from that old school method of pushing products to, well, pulling clients towards you. It's all based on some pretty deep research, over 50 years of it.
Okay, so before we dive in, let's set the stage. What is magnetic selling not? Because I think that's a key distinction the material makes right at the start.
It's absolutely not about those high-pressure tactics that, just make customers want to run.
The ones that make you feel like you need a shower after the conversation.
Exactly. And it's also not about reading from some generic canned script. The power here comes from somewhere else entirely. It's about psychology, empathy, and honestly, a lot of preparation.
We're basically digging into 25 core strategies here. And I think the best place to start is with the biggest mistake, the one that keeps people stuck.
The thing the material calls unaware incompetence. You don't even know what you're doing wrong.
Right. And to illustrate that, we have to start with the mindset. There's this story in the source about an executive.
Oh, it's a powerful one. He quits his job, jumps into selling investment funds, and he just fails completely.
And the reason why is so fundamental. He was focused only on his own needs, right?
His commission, his fees, that's all he could see. He never once stopped to actually talk about the client's problems. Paying for college, feeling secure in retirement.
Things that actually matter to the person on the other side of the table.
And the clients saw right through it. They didn't see a helper. They saw, as you put it earlier, a toll collector.
Yeah.
And that is the single biggest error in sales. It just builds this wall of distrust immediately.
It's so interesting because that principle is timeless. We saw a reference from a former Dale Carnegie executive saying the same thing decades ago.
Customers want solutions to their problems. They could not care less about your company or your product on its own. They only care about what it does for them.
So if you can really internalize that, it allows you to start tapping into some very deep human motivator.
Exactly. The research from Robert Collier is fascinating here. It boils everything down to 4 huge psychological drivers. If your pitch doesn't hit at least one of these, it's probably going to fall flat.
Okay, let's walk through them. First is the desire for love and affection.
Right. Second, financial gain. So making a profit, or, on flip side, saving money.
Third, prestige or status. That's the ego driver.
And fourth, the most primal one, the desire for a long life, for health, for well-being.
So the goal is to credibly link whatever you're selling to one of those 4 things. But, that seems like a stretch sometimes. How do you link, say, cloud storage software to love or health?
Well, you have to reframe it. The features are technical specs, sure, but what's the benefit? By using your cutting-edge software, an executive is seen as innovative by their board. That's prestige. That's ego.
Ah, okay.
Or maybe by automating data backups, you remove the constant stress and anxiety of a potential data catastrophe. That links directly to health and well-being.
So you're not selling software. You're selling peace of mind, or you're selling a promotion.
You're selling an outcome. And that leads right into the idea of needs versus wants. The material is very clear on this.
It breaks things down into essentials, food, shelter, the basics, and luxuries, which are all about pleasure or style.
And the art of magnetic selling, especially with luxuries or non-essentials, is convincing the customer that this thing they want is actually something they need to achieve one of those core desires.
You're moving it from the nice-to-have column to the must-have column in their mind.
That's the whole game. That psychological shift is what creates the magnetic pull.
Okay, so once the mindset is right, we move on to the words themselves, the language.
Language is everything.
Yeah.
The research points to 12 specific words that they have a magnetic effect on our brains.
Let's list them out. We have you, money, love, new, discovery, tested, guarantee, easy, safety, results, saves, and health.
And look at that list. Every single one is about the customer's world, their benefit, their safety, their gain. You is number 1 for a reason. It immediately puts the spotlight on them.
And words like new or discovery, they tap into our curiosity, our desire to be first. Tested or guarantee, on the other hand, they just erase risk.
It's like psychological shorthand. And using this kind of language helps you navigate the single biggest hurdle in any sale, the price.
Right, the cost trap. This was a really great tactical tip. The advice is to literally substitute words for price or cost.
Don't say price, say investment or exchange.
Why? What's the psychological difference?
Price sounds like a loss. It's money going out. Investment sounds like a strategic move for a future return. It reframes the entire transaction from a cost to a benefit.
But couldn't that come off as, a bit slick, a little manipulative?
Only if the value isn't actually there. If you've done the work in the first part and you're genuinely solving their problem, then it is an investment in their success. You have to believe it's not just a transaction.
And when you do present the numbers, there's another strategy, offering options. Low, medium, and high price points.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
prevents that sticker shock from a single high number.
Yeah.
And the research is pretty clear. Most people will choose the middle option.
They feel it's the best balance of quality and value.
Right. They avoid the cheap one because they worry it's low quality, and they shy away from the most expensive one. The middle feels safe and smart.
All of this is building toward what the material calls the irresistible offer. An offer so good the customer feels like they'd be a fool to say no.
And a great way to do that is with comparison. You compare your investment to something else they already spend money on without a second thought.
Can you give us an example of that?
Sure. Let's say you're offering an advisory service for $2,500 a year. That number sounds big.
It does. It's a chunk of change.
But if you break it down and say it's an investment of about $208 a month, the resistance just melts. The brain processes the smaller, more manageable number. It makes the value proposition seem huge in comparison.
So we've covered the mindset and the language, but none of that works if the mechanics of the conversation are wrong. Let's talk about listening.
This is probably the most underrated and most critical skill of all. Salespeople are just so focused on what they're going to say next that they forget to listen.
There's that 80-20 rule from Harold Shinson. Top performers listen 80% of the time and only talk 20%.
Which sounds extreme, but think about it. If you're talking more than that, you're not diagnosing the problem, you're just lecturing. You're missing all the subtle clues.
So how do you actually listen that effectively? The material breaks it into 4 steps.
It's a very deliberate process. Step 1 is just hearing, actually focusing on the words. Step 2 is interpretation, understanding the context, the emotion behind the words. And you cannot interrupt here.
That's the hardest part, I think. Pausing and really trying to understand the unspoken thing, the real objection that they might be too embarrassed to say out loud.
Precisely. Then step 3 is evaluation.
Hmm.
Okay, based on what I just heard and interpreted, what's the right path forward? And only then, step 4, do you get to the response.
It's a much more thoughtful process than just waiting for your turn to talk.
Miles more.
Yeah.
And this applies everywhere, but especially on the phone. Telemarketing has a bad rap, but it can be incredibly effective if you master the mechanics.
The sources really emphasize preparation and presence, even if nobody can see you.
Your tone of voice, your pacing, it's all critical. John Bretlinger warns about speaking too fast. It makes you sound nervous, like you're rushing to get it over with. Slow, clear speech conveys confidence.
And I loved this tip. Dress professionally, even if you're working from home. It sounds silly, but it changes your posture, your confidence, and that comes through in your voice.
It absolutely does. You project authority, and beyond your voice in today's world, you have to use visuals.
The statistic on this from Roger Parker was just mind-blowing.
It really is. When customers are looking at some kind of visual aid during a call type, a slide, they retain 40% of the information.
40%. Compared to what, 15% from just audio?
Just 15%. You are literally more than doubling their retention. That gap is the difference between them remembering your key point and forgetting it the second you hang up.
So finally, let's talk about timing. The sources call it Principle 7. How do you know if a customer is even ready to buy?
You have to ask the right questions gently to gauge 3 things: money, desire, and authority. Do they have the resources? Do they want the solution? And are they the person who can actually make the decision?
And there's a big warning here. Never, ever ask, what's your budget?
It's so confrontational. Instead, you might ask something like, what sort of range did you have in mind for a solution like this? It's collaborative, not demanding.
And timing is also literal, knowing when to call.
Yes. The research gives some great examples. Don't call a contractor at 8 a.m. when they're on a job site. Call between 9 and 5.
And for an executive, it's better to call after 10:30 a.m. once they've put out the morning fires.
It's all about preparation and showing respect for their world. That's what being magnetic is all about.
So to wrap this all up, we've really covered 3 pillars of magnetic selling. First, the mindset of focusing entirely on the customer's problem.
Second, using irresistible communication, those power words, reframing cost as investment.
And third, mastering the mechanics, especially that 80-20 listening rule and using visuals to make your message stick.
It's a journey, as the sources say, of climbing a ladder. You move from unaware incompetence up toward conscious competence, where you are deliberately and skillfully practicing these things until they become second nature.
That transition from being a pushy seller to a magnetic expert is really just about discipline.
Is. And that leads us to our final thought. The material talks a lot about closing deals, but the real experts, the truly magnetic ones, are playing a longer game.
They're not just trying to make a sale.
No, they're trying to build a long-term beneficial relationship. They want the customer to feel, genuinely, that they care about their success. If you're only focused on the transaction, you lose out on the single most powerful marketing tool there is, referrals from happy clients.
So the question to leave you with is this. Considering the sheer depth of preparation magnetic selling requires, the listening, the psychological tuning, how often are you truly dedicating yourself to understanding the client's problem instead of just delivering your pitch? Because that commitment is what turns a one-time transaction into a lifelong professional relationship.